What are the trends that will affect impact workforce needs? National trends in career pathways and employment sectors. And also, where do we see the opportunity for growth in continuing education in the next 5 years? Bill, do you want to start?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jim, and thank you, Christina. But I'll just kick off that last or first question over overall trends. And the long term for me is that we're moving from the industrial age into the knowledge society. And too many continuing education programs still don't get that. And what the knowledge society is people who, by and large, have a 4-year college degree, or at least the skills of a college graduate, who work online. Data, marketing, accounting, et cetera, and those are the people that are now the most important critical work sector in society. And I'm seeing a few programs zero in on this all-important work sector, but we all ought to be, because Moretti, stumbling for the guy's name, wrote a book, and one of the key things was that, one, communities with higher percentages and numbers of college graduates do better than other communities. And number two, even if you're not a college graduate, you do better as a high school graduate, as a welder, as a refrigerator repair, whatever, if you live in a community with more college graduates. And that is the overriding long-term, for the rest of the century, repositioning that every community college, every university, every continuing ed program serving a community, which is what most of our listeners are doing. They're serving a local geographic community, needs to be attuned to and repositioning for, and they're not there yet.
So Bill, just for the audience, I'd like to give some background. Bill and I, we met 25 years ago in mid-90s when internet was just an unknown thing. And Bill is a visionary in this field. He's known for his visionary work all these years, and his speeches at the LERN conference, I love them. I always learn new things. And as a visionary, you wanted to have a website for LERN in mid-90s, before not many institutions had actual websites. And I built LERN's first website, and then I also built LERN's association management software. LERN was so cutting edge, there was no association management software at the time. And then they said, you know, we have to build our own management system. And you did. And at the time, I remember you were predicting, I think this was 2000, in 10 years, everybody has to be on the internet. You had that vision. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's not happening. I mean, we are almost in 2020, and I just ran across a program. It's still publishing their PDF versions and saying, fax us your registration. Why do you think is this delay for some programs?
Well, because all of our listeners are still ensconced in an institution that was built and made for the industrial age. And you can just look at a building and try to decide whether the high school or even the community college building is a factory or a school. So that's one of the key issues that each one of us in higher ed and continuing ed has to deal with. For instance, the percentage of people telecommuting, working from home, just increases every year. And they're now starting to include that in the census. Companies are starting to include that as a benefit. So it's clear, and there's no end in sight. Nobody is predicting that. And yet, I'm going to say 98% of people listening right this moment are working in an office on campus. And there's a real question I have long-term. How are you going to train people in the workforce when they're working from home and you're working in an office and you don't understand intranets, you don't understand virtual offices, you don't understand communicating via distance, you don't understand managing from a distance. So that's one example of why some programs are behind the curve in that respect.
Well, of course, not our customers, because they're already on the web, on the internet.